Hey, Fitheads. Today we talk with Mark Effinger, also known as Mr. Nootropics. And he thinks your brain is a symphony and he's just going to modulate all the chemicals in it. And it sounds like the freaking future. Ah, I mean, spoiler alert, it ends with him making you realize that you don't have to take what's handed to you. If you're having a bad morning, you can fix it. If you didn't sleep well, if whatever your mood is because of your chemicals, you can take control and adjust.
Yeah, it was fun. It was funny. We started with like it's the future, but it was sci-fi, but it's also the present. You know what I mean? We talked a lot about like the magic pill that makes you, use all your brain or utilize all your brain functions or higher powers or whatever. And then he was like, "Yeah, we're kind of getting there." So it's not exactly fiction anymore, and it's exciting. I mean, talk about like a long like a long time coming for something that I was like pumped about. Also, it would help the listeners, viewers, if you have watched the movie Limitless. That comes in a lot. That comes into play.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie, Allie?
Yeah, I didn't realize it was 2012. I can't believe we've been waiting that long for a Limitless pill.
Let's go. Come on, Mark. Hurry it up.
Welcome to Total Fitheads.
Serious fitness for not so serious people.
Mr. Noots, welcome.
Allie, Max, woo!
Thanks for joining us. So, can we give the Fitheads just some background on you first before we dive into magic pills and such?
Magic beans.
Oh, I love it. I love it. How far back you want to go? You want to go all the way?
I don't know. Did you?
I was born
all the way. Yeah. We're back in Steve Martin, the jerk, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, when I was young, when I was 5.5 years old, I built my first radio out of reading Scientific American magazine and figuring out how to wind coils and how to build a diode or a transistor out of a gallium crystal and a safety pin. And so that's kind of my peak, my early desires for science and those things was happening. And then thankfully, when I was 6 on that Christmas, my parents got me this.
Oh.
So for those of you that can't see, this is a 1967 Gilbert Chemistry Experiment Lab kit with instruction. Fun with chemistry. And it was great.
Nerd.
By the way, just so you know, when Bioptimizers, when Matt, Wade, and friends and I decided to join forces, Matt got me the new one.
Updated. New chemistry.
Yeah, new chemistry.
Right. So
can I ask?
anyhow,
Did that? I don't mean to interrupt you. Can I ask? Did that come with a scalpel by any chance?
It did.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
now call it. It's an X-Acto knife now, but yeah.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I had that, and I sliced my thumb open, and I had to go to the hospital and get stitches because I was just gashing blood right out of my thumb.
Nice. See, that. It is. So that's exactly
two completely normal reactions to a chemistry set. Yeah.
I just put you into trauma mode. See, I'm looking fuzzy now. It's woo. I have an AI camera. It doesn't seem to be AIing. Let's see if it likes me. It likes me again.
It thinks your logo is cooler, which, to be fair, that's a sweet background.
Is that? That's the Nootopia logo. So let me see if I
glowing.
I can see if I can adjust that. Hold on. My Ozbot Tiny Cam is not playing nice. Of course, it wants to do a software upgrade. Actually, we're going to close that sucker down. And we're going to do the new Ozbot webcam. That or all of your YouTube visitors are going to be on. Let me see here. Let's do this. Let's do image. Let's do.
All the audio listeners are fine. That's great. Good for them.
All right. Let me see here. That's better. All right. I'm going to get it off auto and do on manual. Perfect. All right. We're still on. Good. All right. So I think we're a little more in focus now. So anyhow, my dad's best friend at the time, he used to play tennis. We were members of this little tiny tennis and swim club, and played tennis with a guy who was a PhD in microbiology and was part of a place called Aerojet General, which was a NASA subcontractor. And so he was a guy that would be responsible for helping us understand what we would do with moon-based viruses if they came to Earth as a result of our explorations up there. So pretty cool mentor for me in that side of it. And then I had an MIT Xerox PARC guy living at the end of our cul-de-sac who guided me on electronics from the time I was 6 years old till 10 or so. So I got a lot of really, really cool insights. And then we fast forward, and I started applying. I had a health crisis back in the early 90s as a result of a drug called Accutane that I was on while I spent 6 years in the Air Force. And the last 2 years I was on this drug, and it was an awful, awful experience. It was great for getting rid of cystic acne. It just happens to give you cancer and other things as well. It's pro. I shouldn't say it gives you cancer.
Side effects.
Yeah, it's pro-cancerous. It's pro-tumor. And so I ended up at a NDMD's bed and breakfast after, I think it was my fourth or fifth company at the time. And he diagnosed me as hypothyroid, got me started on thyroid. And I realized, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, if you've had a health crisis and you have a really good guide who kind of guides you through it, and you get way beyond it, like back, you get not only back to where you were before, but you get beyond it. It is an absolute radical, profound experience of going, holy crap, I feel so freaking good. I want everybody to feel like this. And so I of course became this evangelist for health and wellness. And at the time, this was back in the early 90s, I got excited about vinpocetine and huperzine A, which are a couple of naturally derived compounds that are acetylcholinesterase inhibitors, or they basically keep the acetylcholine from breaking down in your brain so that you get cognitive connections are happening and memory is better and thinking is clearer and those things. And I got super excited about that. And then got really excited about human growth hormone, so what is called a secretagogue, or a precursor to human growth hormone using amino acids. And so built a company doing that, and then sold it to my partner, got into internet technologies because I absolutely freaking loved the opportunity that internet provided for the small business. So I created a company called Quickie Mart, or the software called Quickie Mart, which was one of the first. Yes, it's named after the Simpsons. Apu's, right. So, because that's the way geeks think, right? And so I made this software that would make that basically you loaded on you basically got a CD-ROM. It came with a digital camera. I worked with Camera World of Oregon to distribute it on Canon and Kodak. Kodak had a decent digital camera at the time, and Canon, Nikon, and the rest, Casio, were all doing digital cameras. And so you would get this disc. They would basically ship our disc in your box with your digital camera, and you would load the disc in, because back then people still had dial-up 56K modems, right, which are slow as hell, and there was no way you were going to work on the cloud. But you could build a shopping cart with it, and then you could build it on your desktop. You could build a shopping cart, and then you would press a button, and it would launch it onto the web, onto our servers, and then you would have, you'd be the next Amazon. And so in 1998 to the end of 99, I built that company and then sold it and moved to Newport Beach, California, and started working with startups extensively. 522 were on my desk the day I arrived at the incubator in Newport Beach, California, called techcoast.com.
How many were terrible? Just god awful idiots.
Absolutely. It was so funny. So what I did, Allie, is myself and a guy named Tanner Adams, who is an MBA from University of Irvine, very, very smart kid, ended up working for Microsoft and is now retiring in I think Portugal. Yes, he's retiring in Portola. And very, very cool kid, man. We became blood brothers. And he and I'm like the poster child for ADHD. So he said, we can't do anything in the office. When you're here, it's all about the companies coming in and the employees and everything. We're not going to get anything done. So we went to my condo, which was overlooking Balboa Island, which is a little island there in the Newport Beach coast. And it was all sliding glass windows across one wall. It was overlooking the island. And so we just got whiteboard markers and he read business plans to me. And then we started doing pattern recognition, like how many were the same business plan, but one had a really badass CEO, one had a technology genius, one had intellectual property, and then what we would do is a thing called micro mergers, where we would get them all in a room. We had great backing from Citibank down there and some other partners, Microsoft and Compaq and Level 3 Communications and stuff. And I'd say, here's the deal, guys. So we have roughly 25 people in the room. We had this desk that went on forever, that the bank gave us. And it said, you're all getting funded or nobody's getting funded. And so we do. And so, then you get a bunch of Scooby moments, where they go, huh? Yeah. And myself or Tanner would write on the whiteboard the name of the CEO we wanted, the name of the CTO we wanted, the chief product officer we wanted, right? And we just kept going down. And then we'd look at them and say, we'd like to build this super group. This is going to be Journey or Asia or Zeppelin, right? It's going to be like the super group or Duran Duran or Tears for Fears. And this is the super group. And the rest of you, we've got cubes, we've got software, we've got hardware, we've got bandwidth, and we've got a little bit of funds. You go out there and take the idea that you didn't do with this other person and do the one that you had sitting in your mind, but you gave up because you went and joined this startup. And that's how we did it. And then we would try to build these super groups and we had a bit of success at that. I think we had 13 that launched out of that. But as you said, Allie, most of them were, at the time, there was, I think, a 66 character limit on a URL, a domain name. And so they would use up all 66. The really cool internet startup company.com or worse, .net. And because somebody else had the .com. Right?
Yeah.
And there was just so many of those. And most of them were, and this is by the way, this is very popular in the angel funded / venture funded startup space. A lot of the people that we found were just looking for somebody to basically move them out of their job. They had a job working for some tech company somewhere or some non-tech company doing a tech operation, because most of these were old .coms. And what they were really looking for was somebody to fund their next job. They weren't necessarily the people that you would ever hire to run a startup or you would really fund. But they were taking advantage of the buzz and the hype. And we see that every few years. It's real estate, right? Carlton Sheets or whoever happens to be the hype master of the week, or the .coms or NFTs or Bitcoin or, so anyhow, yeah, that's kind of what I did. And then what happened in the kind of crucial moment, I've spoken too long. The crucial moment in all this was in
please, by all means.
So my wife and I started having our babies in the 90s, and we fell in love with natural home births. We thought that was a cool thing to do, and we weren't the typical granola eating, sandal wearing kind of naturists. We were the executives who thought that it was a smarter thing to do. So we started doing that, and my wife was really great about having babies in weird places like a hot tub or a chair in the master bedroom, or in the last one, it was a couch in front of the fireplace. And in that last one, she tore a little bit. And so the midwife handed her 4 oxycodone, and she fell in love with, she found her muse and she fell in love with oxycodone. And so, and she was very good at masking that little problem. A decade later, she committed suicide with that drug, that med that the Sacklers provided to her. And so that set me on a route to, how do I help people get out of addictive, addictions, especially chemical addictions? Mm-hmm. And what can we do to put them back together? How can we play the Humpty Dumpty repair group? And so we moved to Blaine, Washington. If you want to go to a small town, Blaine is the definition. It's right on the Washington, California, or Canada border. 4,500 people. 1,500 of them are cops working at the border, and the others are dependents of cops. And so it was a great place. Thank you, David McGinnis, the founder of Newsworthy.ai, was the guy that made that all possible. We had built and sold a company called PR Web just a couple years prior, and he gave us that window we needed to put our lives back together. So that's what I did. I spent the next 4 years formulating neurochemical combinations in order to create a solution that would make you feel, one, it would help you get out of your kind of drugged, medicated state fast without pain. It would do it quickly and inexpensively, 4 to 72 hours, and it would make you feel good in the process. And so that was kind of what I was working with originally. And at the same time, this was 2008 to 2011, and this movie came out. I was doing this stuff. I was doing brainstorming software with the founder of Century 21 Real Estate, Marsh Fisher. That's Marsh right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we built brainstorming software for the smartest people in the world. So I happened to be fortunate to be surrounded by really, really smart people that I could send a test tube of really crappy tasting powder to and say, try this. And does it make you smarter or does it make you vomit?
Could be both.
Right. There was some of that. In fact, David McGinnis, he said, because we would have lunch every week. He said, Mark, the only reason this makes me smarter or this wakes me up is because it tastes so bad.
Works, it works.
Right. Yeah. It worked. So what happened, and I didn't even see it. I didn't see it coming, and we could not have written the script for this. But in 2011, in the summer, when I finally finished the product, after about 3,000 iterations of it, I sent out a notice to all of my beta testers. I had a little over 1,000. And I said, I think I've got, you guys have said that this rocks. It's working great. We're having over a 97% efficacy rate, meaning that over 97% of the people we sent this to in this kind of customized formulation got a dramatic increase in performance. However they define that. And we had a big categorical listing that they could go to. And so I said, what do I call this thing? And a unanimous comeback was, hey, there's a movie called Limitless that just came out. Why don't you call it NZT? So I called a former business partner of mine, a very sharp guy named Wyatt Starnes. He was a fantastic mentor of mine. And I said, Wyatt, what do I call this? He goes, dude, and he looks it up on the, USPTO website. He goes, they haven't trademarked or patented any of, those terms or phrases or thoughts or anything. So why don't you just call it NZT? So I bought a bunch of domains around NZT, called it that. And January 15th of 2012, while I was actually en route from Blaine, moving back to the Portland, Oregon area, a girl in Denmark built a WordPress, like a 3 or 4 page WordPress website for me, put a form on it to say how, what's your age, weight, sex, how much coffee you drink, and some other factors, and put a buy now button, a PayPal buy now button, $55, And the next morning I woke up. She literally did it overnight. And the next morning I woke up and I had a bunch. I had like dozens and dozens of these purchases going, send me NZT. And and that's kind of how we started. So, and here we are.
Solid. Sounds like blockbuster marketing budget.
I got to tell you, I know that at one point we work with some of the big guys in Hollywood now, and I know at one point Bradley Cooper is going to walk up to me and go, "Dude, you owe me," and I will gladly pay him.
So it sounds like it's evolved since then. You have more than just that first offering, right? Ooh.
I do. Right.
What is it? It's in a lab tube? Oh, that's so cool. What?
A beaker.
Yeah, beaker, that's it. I'm only drinking pre-workout from beakers from now on.
Oh yeah. No, we've what happened is we grew that company, and I'm no stranger to companies. This was my 18th and or my 17th actually. And on a Facebook post, a guy named Brad Costanza, who's a well-known executive coach, he opened up a box of our product. He'd been a customer since literally the year we opened our doors. I think April of that year was his first purchase of 2012. And so in 2019, I think, or 2020, he opens up a box of our product. He pours it out, takes a shot of it, and says, like, this is the coolest stuff that ever made. And he goes, I've been doing it for years. And then everybody kept, the thread started, right? And it went viral. And one of the guys that saw it, his name was Matt Gallant, and he founded a company called Bioptimizers, a very, very well-known health and wellness products company, specifically focused on gut health and nutrition in that area. And he kind of said, I've been meditating on this. This is the thing that I've been looking for years, and reached out to Brad and said, how do I get hold of this guy? And so he hooked us up. Matt and I, about a month later, we had a Zoom call with his COO, who lives in London. Matt's in Panama. Our COO, Andy's in London. And he said, he goes, I think I might want to buy your company. And I said, well, we're not for sale. And he says, yeah, that's what we want. We want a company that's not for sale. We want somebody who wants to go change the world. So we started working together, and here's a really fun part. And here's a lesson also in I would consider it the proper dynamics when you're doing a merging of companies or a merging of ideas. Is he said, look, man, what he did is he bought thousands of dollars worth of product every month. Like literally. And then he built massive Google spreadsheets of the effects, because we customize everything we make, every capsule we make, every powder, every tube, every spray is customized to the individual. And so it's kind of the way we work. It's a philosophy that we developed when we first started this thing, because we found that customization worked way more effectively than a one-size-fits-all type of approach. And so Matt said, here's the deal, man. He goes, I don't want to ruin your brand. And if we decide after dating, he goes, let's not jump into bed together. He goes, we both probably had that thing happen. And then we decide later on that, we don't want chlamydia and we're right. We're not great bedfellows. And so rather than doing that, let's date. Let's hold hands a little bit. Maybe go see a few movies together. Take some long walks on the beach, which sounds like a Match.com profile. And so he said, let's do this. We're gonna hide your face. We're gonna do the typical FBI informant type thing on 60 Minutes, where the voice is all folded up and all that stuff. And let's try a launch of some what I consider your top products, and I'm going to build a system for them. And let's call it a new company name. And if it doesn't work out, your brand will be intact. You'll have more customers, and we part friends. if it doesn't work, that's if it doesn't work. If it does work, I'll show you what we can do. And boy, did they do that. So we had a Facebook Live thing with the two founders, Matt and Wade, and myself, and it launched. And right afterward, right, so we do a couple hours, those go, and right after, I get a phone call from Matt, and he goes, dude, we lost 20%. In other words, we we were 20% below our, below break even on the deal. And I said, and so I'm thinking, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, well, then it's over. It was a nice date. Thank you for holding my hand. You're cute, but we're not, we're not going to go
no
any
hard
further.
feelings.
Right. Yeah. And he goes, no, dude. He goes, I can fix that. He goes, I can fix it if we're 80% below break even, I can fix it. 20%, I can do something with that. And so we did it, and we kept working together. We kept refining things. We built systems. They became the big brother that I needed for this kind of a, to really accelerate this. And incredible. I mean, not to go off on a tangent, but we just finished 2.5 days of strategic meetings, like literally 2 8-hour days, and then a 4-hour Christmas get together with everybody on the team. We're in 19 countries. We've got over 100 employees, and so we're all on Zoom and doing these things. And I got to tell you, man, I want to say, man, I include you, Allie.
Yeah, it's fine, bro.
Right on. Is I have this is again the 18th company, and I've had the guy that founded 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey's partner and the former president of Covey International, Will Murray, was my mentor in company culture. The guy that funded Nike was my mentor in venture capital and finance. And I've had incredible mentors all along the way. And I've never in my life found a company that is so heart-centered, people-centered, life-centered, who have a hyper-ambitious goal of making sure that every soul on earth has the opportunity to be biologically optimized. So anyhow, I'm off my rant, but it's such a cool thing after 2 years of working with these guys to find that they've gotten better, not like, exposing all the war wounds and showing what crappy people they really are underneath that really bright, shiny cover. They're actually better than they were. So anyhow.
That's solid. The mission is so important to a healthy workplace, or just happiness overall, right? And people jiving together and really making something cool.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see that there's something beyond just trying to sell a product. And yeah, the fact that you're personalizing it to each person, we come across a lot of companies now. It feels like the health industry is headed in that direction. People are waking up to the fact that one size does not fit all. And
yeah,
how have you guys gone around that, or figured that out, sort of matched up the type of person with what's going to work for them?
That's an awesome question. So it started with that first a little over 1,000 of my brainstorming software customers. They became people that voluntarily said, yes, I will be on a beta test with you, and I will trust you not to kill me. And so that's kind of how that started. And I was pairing molecules. I would take one molecule that did a certain thing and one that did another thing that I thought might be complementary. I would pair them together. I would send that out to these people and say, try these together and tell me your results. I've got clinical, technology, clinical like pieces that are disparate that when I put them together, they seem to make sense, pattern recognition, but I would love for you to validate that. And I just kept doing that. And over time, I got to between 30 and 42% efficacy. So as I started stacking, instead of 2 molecules, I had 2 that worked with another 2 that worked with another 2 that might have worked. They were in test phase and trying to do that. And as we're doing that, this 30 to 42% was not good enough for me to feel reliable enough that I could, get these results. But when I would go to the rehab center and I would custom make them for these people that are getting, the paddy wagon backs up, and people that are like insanely stoned or drunk or have been, or, over the last 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, year. And we're talking about homeless people to somebody off of take any movie where drugs are like the preeminent thing, to to the CEOs of not insignificant companies, going to a little rehab center that they hope nobody notices them. And so putting these pieces together, I realized that it was taking a look at what med they were on or what drug they were on, taking a look at their age, their sex, their weight, their height, whether they look like they were fit or skinny fat or overweight or whatever, and then asking them a bunch of questions, going through my 150 questions, that arrived at these very consistent patterns based on your sex, weight, age, and some of those factors, hormone levels and things. And as a result of that, I was able to move that needle from that 30 to 42% to 97.2%. And it was a customization was a kind of a core tenet in that. So I took all of this data that I'd been aggregating, which at that point was going into a MySQL database that an old business partner of mine had helped. He said, "Here, let's make sure you don't lose this data completely." And we, every time we'd build forms, we'd have to redo all of that, and the data would become all kind of estranged. But he did a good job. And now we've got over 20 million data points that we've collected over the last decade. And so that gives you a lot of kind of inferences to work with. And so you say, oh, if you're between the ages of 30 and 36, you train 3 times a week, your primary exercise is moving, weights around. You don't do any cardio, or you don't do any, visible cardio. You're cyclical ketogenic. You weigh 200 pounds. You're 6 foot tall.
It's like you're talking about me.
Factors. And then, yeah,
your name starts with an A, ends in an LI.
You lie about your weight.
Right. That's what we all do, right? What's really funny is when we started this, a lot of the people that became our first customers, because the buzz on the street was that we had created this thing called NZT. So, and everybody had seen Limitless and they go, "Oh, Bradley Cooper, oh man, he took that super drug. He got so cool, right? I'm going to go day trading with this stuff." And they did. They literally did. But a lot of these people were people that, not a lot of these, there was a measurable amount of these people were either taking Adderall as their alternative, they were on Coke, or they were on speed, or they were on, they were doing whatever they could as a quote unquote performance enhancing drug. And so they weren't telling us that on these forums because they didn't want to expose, and they thought, oh, we're clearly just working with the feds, right, to bust everybody in their dog. So, but the first form they would fill out would be X, and the next form, the feedback form, when they got the next order, would be completely different. You go, oh, okay, I get it. They're masking their issues, or they're masking their problems, and then they're starting to build an incremental trust with us, and then we would reinforce that. And it really did make a profound difference in the results. And the other part of it was, when you start working on that side of your neurology or physiology, is instead of having the incremental improvements that you might have, or having the fast improvement and then you plateau really quick, is you keep getting these kind of improvements, and then you plateau, improvement, plateau, improvement, plateau. But the plateaus don't last very long, because with the stuff that we're doing, we're often either regenerating or creating new brain cells, a thing called neurogenesis. And then we're helping you build new neural pathways. So you're getting like new habits are building, or the ability to access certain kinds of information or data are expanding quickly, or your, maybe if you especially if you combine it with like a practice, a meditation practice, or a breathwork practice, or a creative thinking practice, or, any of those things. You're doing Sudoku on the plane, and suddenly you find that you've raised your baseline effectiveness. Your cognitive baseline has risen, and it doesn't like fade as the nootropics wear off. It stays there, and you go, oh wow, this is kind of cool. I'm at a new baseline. And people come to you and they say, oh dude, you're very different in terms of your cognitive, your switching capacity or other kind of things, task switching that might have been very hard to do earlier. You're suddenly much faster at that. How are you doing that? And that's when it comes into the nootropics, are kind of a cool device that you can incorporate into your regimen that does that. So yeah, and customization.
And this is the kind of thing where the people taking the drug are feeling and reporting that, or is it that an outside test is how you can tell, or are they actually sensing it themselves?
You can do, they do both. So there's a thing called a dual and back test, which is a cognitive performance test that a lot of people do, and then there are other things where it's more experiential from like a partner standpoint, or whether it's your life partner, or whether it's a business partner, and they're going, hey man, your ability to handle cognitive load is much higher than it was weeks ago. I don't know if you've ever been here, Ali. Have you had? Have you ever had a serious health crisis?
No, nothing serious. I had a paper cut the other day.
Well, there you go. Max, you?
I'm sure it's all relative, right? I mean, how do you mean how serious are we talking?
Well, like when I was hypothyroid, I mean, it was serious. I was feeling like crap. My energy levels sucked. I was in a fog most of the day. I would immediately have, if something shitty happened in the morning, I would immediately have an adrenal rush. Serotonin and all the other neurochemicals would try to protect me from my heart going out my chest. I would then go into a low functioning mode or a non-functioning mode. I would stare off into space for hours. I would eventually recover about 11 o'clock at night, and I would try to do all of my work that I missed that day in 11 to 1 in the morning, and then I would pass out and repeat. And that rinse and repeat was just very uncomfortable. So that's the health crisis I had. And it was funny because I was Ben Greenfield and I were on a call a couple months ago, and it was the same thing. I said, Ben, when you've had a health crisis, he goes, Mark, I've never had a health crisis, because it's always onward and upward, bro.
Yeah.
So anyhow, it's that thing when, like, again, this is not my first rodeo in terms of startups. When you're doing a startup, you have to succeed. You can't go, oh, I'm going to do this with balance in my life. I'm going to do it 36 hours to 40 hours a week. I'm taking weekends off, and I'm never going to work past 6 p.m. And, the obsession is where success happens in a startup. It is absolute 24/7, right? And then eventually you buy yourself the ability to go and take some time off. But until you get it up to speed, until it's actually, you've got, key employees in place and everybody's speaking the same language and you're getting adoption by the marketplace and you're getting that stuff, you're kind of 24/7. And when you do those things, there's a certain point where you hit the wall. And when you hit the wall, your ability to handle cognitive tasks goes way down. And it could be the equivalent of running a marathon, or I used to do the Hood to Coast run, which is from Mount Hood to the coast of Oregon. And it's a relay. You got, I think we had seven people. So we're doing a relay. You each run about 15 miles a piece, 15 to 18, something like that, and 3 different legs. Yeah, it's crazy. And by the time you're running the third leg, you look like an ultra marathoner on the last 5 miles. You're kind of limping along, and your breath is at a conversational pace because you can't do anything more. You're sore as hell. And that same thing happens to you mentally when you're using up your cognitive, reserves, and you're no longer making clear decisions. You know it when you're writing copy, or you're in stressful conversations with people, and suddenly, you exit out of that conversation. You're not necessarily in shape to go run exhaustive spreadsheets on your accounting or do your taxes, as one of my favorite friends, Dr. Drew, says, is you're kind of want to just kind of like lay low for a bit, let your neurochemicals restore themselves, and then you can go back into that. Or if you're doing radical task switching, where you're going from writing to study to administration, to talking to your customers, to working with employees, each of those tasks has a very different cognitive situation, and you've got to feed your brain into those positions. Otherwise, you find yourself fatigued after 3 or 4 hours rather than being able to last all day. And so the ideal scene is let's replenish those neurochemicals or at least the precursors, so that you've got them, those neurochemicals can be replaced at a rate equal to or better than your ability to eat them up doing tasks. And so that's kind of the promise of nootropics, is to be able to do that.
Those tasks all come from this one same bucket that I use as a metaphor, but I feel like your physical energy is also tied to that bucket too. Do you find that nootropics can help you in the gym if you're replenishing yourself mentally?
Oh, hell yeah. So when, I have experimented with dozens and dozens of pre-workout supplements, and I think we've all kind of played with that, or we built our own, or we get kind of a combination of different things that we take. Right.
Yeah.
My pre-workout is punching Max in the face. I built my own.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think we need to illustrate that. I think we need to have a cartoonist get in there and do that.
Well, every time we try, she breaks her hand, so it doesn't.
Hey,
that's right.
It doesn't work that well.
Well, it's that kind of thing. One of the things that I did bodybuilding when I was younger, and one of the biggest things in bodybuilding was it's the physical thing is one component of it, but you've got to have the mental capacity to handle one more rep, or to be able to talk yourself into. I mean, you know how you get yourself pumped before you can do another set, or if you're doing supersets, right? You got to stay on that as you're starting to kill yourself. You're doing pyramids, and you're suddenly finding yourself at the bottom of that, and you get 2 reps out, and you're going, yeah, but I promised myself a third, or I promised myself a fourth. And doing that's a mental challenge. It's not a physical. Your body can do that. You can talk your body into it, or you can feed your body to do that. But if your mind isn't prepared to handle that, like Matt will turn on Metallica and he will ramp it up to 11. It goes to 11. And then, then he can handle anything. For me, it's yes. If I turn on the right yes tune, or if I turn on the, there's a lot. Or Incubus is a great one for me in the gym. Is that's what gives me that thing, and that is actually a dopaminergic and adrenal, right? That's a cognitive enhancer for those specific neurochemicals.
I knew it. Listening to music in the gym is cheating. I've always thought this. When I listen to audiobooks, it feels fair.
Yeah, man. It's great, and it's the best kind of cheating. So yeah, it's super important to do that, but it also, one of the components of that where nootropics, and you ask about, like, yeah, our stuff, here's like a classic box of our stuff. Okay. This is our Nootopia box, and you've got, like, this sticks on your fridge. That's a little magnetic envelope, and then you open it up, and you've got, capsules and tubes of stuff, and it's really cool. And here's like a list of those are looking. Those are, let me see if I can do this.
That is totally an adult chemistry set. Yeah, your
Yeah,
origin
that's what
story
you
makes
just
so
made.
much
Yeah.
sense. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, it was it's exactly what it is. And the cool thing is it's not just you know like one of the things we like to say is it's not just the pill, it's the process. So it's what if you take this capsule and then you sip this drink?
Mm.
You get a byproduct of the neurochemical precursors in both of those to get this kind of third thing that is not only each of those neurochemicals that you're building with the drink and the capsule, but also this third neurochemical profile that's going to be like, I like to think of it as, as like a bar graph or like a spectrum analyzer, like you might have on your radio. So you've got like the bass notes and you've got like a bit of mid-range, you got some treble, right? And you got some vocal level, and you're kind of modulating those and moving those at the right rate to give you the outcome that you want. Like, do I need to be more loving with my sweetheart? Well, good. Then I want to bring up some serotonin and maybe some anandamide. Maybe I want to get the bliss hormone happening, bliss molecule happening. Do I want to be more deeply focused in my work? Well, we make a solution for that gets your dopamine up, brings a little bit of noradrenaline on there, but has a bit of GABA too, so you don't feel like you're gritty, like you're on edge. Mm-hmm. And it's balancing those neurochemicals, and which is where the customization comes in and the stack formulations come in. So the outcome or the output of it is predictable, reliable, something you want, and it lasts for the length of time that you need it to last. And it doesn't then overrun your ability. Like people talk about modafinil, and it's great on day one. On day two, they're going, okay, I didn't sleep last night, so I'm a little burned, but I'm still awake. Day three, they're going, get me out of here, please let me loose. And the same thing with Adderall is, take Adderall and then you crash because your dopamine system crashes when it's over. And it's more like it's like going to a rave, taking too much Molly and ending up in a corner 2 days later, hoping your system will recover. And you don't want that. You want your body to produce the right neurochemicals at the right rate that give you the right result in the right time period. And then hopefully, if you do it right, to bring up your baseline level so that the next time you take these, you're not starting from here, you're starting from here. And then build those neural pathways so that you can actually create, this super predictability in terms of your results, not necessarily your thinking. You have hyper creative thinking, your lateral thinking is expanded with these. That stuff just gets better and better. But now you can override habits. You can induce good habits. You can create new good habits. And you also get this enhanced cognitive processing so that eventually you're looking down on everybody like you're some kind of a brainiac god from Lawnmower Man. And
that's the goal.
Jeez. So it's not that you would be taking something like serotonin and then your brain stops making it because you're feeding it to it. It's that you're bringing the baseline up.
Correct. What you want to do is you want to work with, you want to have really, really healthy bioavailable precursors to those specific neurotransmitters. And you want your body to do the final conversion if possible. And by doing that, what you're doing is instead of down regulating your serotonin or dopamine or GABA, right, or noradrenaline, instead of down regulating that, you're basically up regulating it, and you're creating more of those receptors availability, and you're also sensitizing those receptors, and you're increasing the available neurochemical to satisfy those receptors. So it's really it's a concert that you're working with, and you've got each of your players, your violinist over here and your kettle drum guy over here, right, and your lead guitar over here, because in my classical concerts I've got a lead guitar and he's playing a badass stack of Marshalls. Yeah. And so right, and you want that balance of those pieces, but you want to bring them up at the right time. You want that swell to come up at the right time. You want to be able to feel it. You want that experience of knowing that that's coming on. but you don't want it to be artificially inspired, and you don't want to tell your receptors to go, all right, you've got serotonin, I don't need to make any more. Because the downside of that, the check that you have to write at the end of that experience is very expensive, because now you've got to tell your receptors, hey, now you don't have any serotonin left. The problem with, and I don't want to demonize antidepressants, because they can be extremely valuable for people. And again, I'm not a doctor. I just play one on the internet. Is when you have an SSRI, there's a key in the name, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, meaning that it inhibits the reuptake process. Okay, it's basically putting that neurochemical, in this case, let's call it serotonin, in a loop. So it's flowing between the receptors, right? It's just flowing between. Well, when it does that, it's sending a signal to both your brain and your gut, since the majority of serotonin is made in your gut, and saying, hey, I got plenty of serotonin, I don't need any more. You can quit production. The problem is when the calcium ion cloud dissipates from retaining that, holding it between it, and you suddenly get the last little plug of serotonin that crosses the neuroreceptor, the gap there, the neuron gap, and it's used up. You suddenly don't have it. You have a deficit that you've got to build up again. So what happens when that happens is depression, lack of motivation, especially when you get into the dopaminergics like Adderall or methylphenidate, those things, is that you basically say, okay, here, let's go plug this thing, let's go meth amplify the dopaminergic center, and let's go burn up that dopamine really fast and really get you on. The problem is it's not making more dopamine, and as a result of that, you end up at the end of that trip with a deficit of dopamine. Mm-hmm. Again, motivation goes away, happiness goes away, and it's a crash. And you got to start that process all over. And it's a continual thing. It keeps going down and down. You need more and more and more. Hence the reason that 4 to 6 weeks after you start taking a med like that, you'll go back to your medical practitioner, and you'll typically say to them, hey, it worked really well for the first 2 weeks. Then it was okay, and now it's not working as well. And they go, great, no problem. We know how this works. And they do one of two things. They'll either up your dose, or they will up your dose and give you a second component that's going to reinforce one of the side effects. It's going to help abate one of the side effects that happened from the first one. And there's a thing called polypharmacy that ends up resulting. But before my dad passed away, he was on 7 different meds. 6 of them were to cover the side effects of the first one. And it's kind of how the system works. And I think there's a better way. I know there's a better way. So did that help?
Yeah, the side effects for sure. I mean, I've taken some nootropics that did make me actually, well, you talked about throwing up. They definitely made me feel pukey.
So have I.
Yeah, so you've found that there are negative things to the nootropics too, or is it more about dialing it in?
Yeah, it's there's a couple of things. One is if you don't formulate the nootropics, there are I hate to call them solutions. There are products out there that are one size fits all, and that will automatically have a tendency to just kind of fit, 25 to 30% of the people will have a good result on that. But the majority are going to have a nothing or a negative effect from them. And we found the same experience when we didn't customize. When we didn't personalize our products, we didn't find that we had as much negative, because I was pretty careful about that. But we did find that above 42% of the people, they were getting this kind of like, I'm not really feeling much, or this isn't a great, this isn't my ideal experience, or I wouldn't do this, this wasn't something I would repeat. But when we started optimizing it based on the profiles that they gave us, it made a dramatic difference in the results. Like, some people were caffeine sensitive. So you go, oh, okay, you want a no stim or a very low stim a kind of product. And we use just enough stim in our products to cover the enzymatic process that happens, converting the precursor of the the key neurochemicals into the neurochemicals in the brain. So, and we do, we do really, really cool stim stacks that just pass enough of that so that when that enzymatic process is happening, you take the nootropic, it gets into your bloodstream, it breaks down in the gut, or maybe it breaks down in the duodenum, past the duodenum. It gets into your bloodstream, it gets through the blood-brain barrier, and then it gets into the brain. Now what? So now what you want to do is you want to use the natural enzymatic processes that are brought on by good vitamin B levels or the various, thousands of enzymatic processes that happen in the cell and in the brain. And you want to basically pull those neurochemical precursors apart and turn them into the key neurochemicals. When it's doing that, that is a load on your system. So that is basically, right? It's like when you see somebody with the bass kickers in their car, right? They've really jammed out their car and they're making it so the windows are like pulsing, and their headlights are dimming every time the bass notes hit. They got Eminem cranked up to 11. And when that's happening, that's the same kind of load that can happen when you're having these enzymatic processes happening in your brain. So what you do is you develop a stack that helps to overcome that load during the time period that load is happening, so that you never feel this kind of, and then you come out of it. Instead, you feel good, you feel better, and then as that enzymatic process is completing and those neurochemicals are then available, and you're signaling the molecules to say, hey, I've got dopamine. Do you want to send some into, through the neuron gap or the dopamine receptor? And your brain can say, yes, I'd like some of that. And so then that flows in there, and you don't have this kind of down regulation, then up regulation. You have a steady and then rise. It's really cool. So, and it was not a simple process. Again, it was 3,000 experiments to start, and we haven't stopped. We just have kept. I mean, today I worked with half a dozen combinations based around a new molecule that has just been kind of extracted, or has been extracted from the mango plant. And by working with that, we're able to get an incredibly long-lasting dopaminergic effect without making you feel like you're wired or ahead of it. All you do is you wake up, you get a bit of positivity, your motivation goes up, and your ability to complete tasks goes up without you feeling like you're on the edge. And like an Adderall thing we call Adderall the asshole drug, because every time I would try taking it when I was building tech companies, my employees would come in and I would bite their heads off, and they go, "Oh, you're on the asshole drug again. I'll see you when you're through your trip, bro."
Yeah, the toddler.
Yeah.
Are there any behaviors, practices, non-chemical, that you found work really well in conjunction with these across the board, or is that also sort of too specific to note?
No. It's great. So one of the things that I started learning transcendental meditation when I was 8 years old. I had a high school assistant, or a grade school assistant, who loved the way my bike looked. I had a really clean Schwinn bike, a Schwinn Varsity. And so he said, let's go bike riding. And he taught me TM as a result of that. But the thing and I didn't retain all of it. I didn't retain the mantra, but what I did retain was the box breathing and the depth of breathing, and how to breathe, and how to count your heartbeats as you're breathing, and how to use those as kind of your guide to when to breathe in, when to breathe out, how long to hold it, all of those things. And I will do a binaural audio augmented meditation in the morning for 20 minutes. And I use a thing called Pizizz, P-Z-I-Z-Z. It's a free app you can download for your phone, or you can pay for it. They've got a bunch of extended pieces out of it now. It's a freemium app now. But I use that in the morning. So like literally I'll wake up, take a pee, drink a bunch of water with a little bit of salt in it. And then, because that'll increase the electrical potential between the neurons, which, increases that. And then I'll take some Noots and my oils, I take a bunch of fats in the morning. And then I'll do this 20-minute meditation. And it does a couple things. It kind of does reorganization of your dream life and your thought life. So instead of being overwhelmed by the stuff of the day because you're immediately getting into it, it gives you a reboot period, and it does some incredible sorting in the brain. And the other is it usually solves a problem or two. That 20 minutes feels like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I was going to 20-minute meditation is no joke.
Right?
Yikes.
What makes it easier, Max, is the binaural audio guides you through it. I turn the voice off. I don't need the voice, but it actually brings you into state, holds you there, cycles you a bit, and brings you out of state. It's a really great tool. Steve Jobs used the same application. A bunch of other well-known high-performance individuals have used it. I've been using it since 2004. It used to be a hardware device, and then this thing called the iPod kind of obliterated it, and then the iPhone further.
Wait, you said it was BIZZ app?
No, PIZZ. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Or PZ. Sorry, PZIZZ. Pziz.
Okay.
I have no idea where the name came from. It was
the only domain name left.
Right, exactly. Give me a 5-letter domain that has a .com. And the guy that developed it was a special forces individual, an English special forces guy, and they can't like schedule an 8-hour sleep, right? They've got to be at alert, and they're, especially when they're on task. And he found that doing breathing exercises and doing binaural audio helped him to get into state. And then he could do in 20 minutes, he could get 90 minutes worth of sleep, or he could get 2 hours worth of sleep by doing that. So it's really great, because especially if I had a crappy night's sleep, although I never have crappy night's sleep anymore because we developed sleep breakthrough.
That was my next question.
Does that infomercial 101 or what? But we developed a really incredible a deep sleep product that it works incredibly well. And then we do a spray that helps you in sleep onset. It speeds up sleep onset. But we just did some cool mods literally this weekend. We did some cool mods of this that make it, and it just is a breathtaking product for getting you to sleep, keeping you to sleep, increasing your dream activity, getting you out of sleep when it's time to wake up without having a hangover and without feeling like you've just melatonined yourself to death. So,
wow. That one feels like very easy to track for people at home too, because there's so many sleep trackers that show you all of those things that you named, right?
You bet. Yeah, the Aura, and we've got the Dream product, Dream.ai coming out. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's great. And we've been testing this extensively. We've been working on this now for 2 years, and so it was not a simple academic exercise. It was a lot of trial and error. And the other thing is sleep, like any other neurological factor, is very variable with people. Some people, too much GABA will wake them up. Some people, not enough, and they can't get to sleep. Some people have really fast sleep onset, but they wake up at 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. Some people have, they lay awake for 90 minutes and then suddenly they're out all night. So being able to work with those variables and make it so that your body and your brain use the right components, because they break down based on your demand for them and the signaling molecules that happen. That was fun.
So there are different formulations for sleep too that you have? Is that what you're saying?
We have a standardized formula because we figured out how to make it so that it was reliable enough that it works in 90-something% of the cases. Okay. It's been really cool. Yeah. That was a tough one. Because sleep is a really complex thing, and during the last couple of years, sleep has been, lack of sleep is an epidemic. So, solving that was a big problem.
We're basically a sleep podcast now. That's all we want to talk about.
It's true, isn't it? I mean, it's amazing. And we have this weekend we've been working with different magnolia bark extracts as a component of the formula. And then the factors that come in are magnolia 1-to-1 tastes very floral. So, and so you've got to either build a floral tasting mix, like a rose water mix or something like that, or you've got to go, okay, how do you mask this flavor? And then the other is as your concentrations in those increase from 1-to-1 to 5-to-1 to 10-to-1 to 30-to-1, there are other characteristics that come on, and you've got to work with those things. Also, their coordination with neuroavailable GABA and with some of the other components like glycine, those change as well as the concentration increases. Because you got honocoil and you've got magnolol are the two basic components of magnolia bark, and you've got to get the ratios right for it to be hyper effective. So those are the kind of things that we work with on a regular basis to try to resolve those challenges. And it's fun. It's actually really fun because with Matt is my co-developer on every formula we do, and then Chastity is both co-developer and flavorist. She's in my lab down here. We've got a 24,000 square foot lab in right on the Mississippi in Burlington, Iowa.
Cool.
And so yeah, it's great. It's great. I'm really fortunate to have this. The next podcast, by the way, we do, we've got the third floor. We've got these massive 12-foot half round 2019 or 1919 Art Deco windows, and we're clearing up those windows and making it so you can see the city as the backdrop.
That's awesome.
So very cool.
Solid.
Yeah, so it's doing that, and then I'm sending, we're overnighting to Matt, who's in Panama. He's trying them as well, where if it works or it needs mods, we make the mods and we send them out to our beta testers in the bioverse, we call it, and then they try them. They give us yeah, it's great. You
talk about modulating these neurochemicals, like you're mixing music. I'm wearing a continuous glucose monitor right now. Do you think in the future we'll get to the point where you're seeing all the neurochemicals on a continuous graph and really, I want that?
I think you're badass. So when I first saw a continuous glucose monitor it was a waiter that was wearing it. And that was the first time I'd seen it outside the laboratory. And then of course he had an insulin pump with it, and because he was diabetic. Mm-hmm. And he was born diabetic. And so this was kind of an incredible solution. And when I saw how non-invasive it was, and he talked to me and he said, dude, this is the coolest thing. And I saw his results. He showed me the graph on his app on his phone. And I said, you know what we need? We need this with Nootropics and other neurochemicals so that you could actually dial it up. And there's actually a movie called Spiderhead. If you get a chance, great movie to watch. It's of course science fiction, and it's taken way too far, because what they try to do is they try to get people that have just met to fall in love with each other, and then to hate each other, and to try to kill each other, and to do things like that. Like
seen
really
that movie. I didn't remember the title, or I saw something like that. Yeah, it's really, really great movie, and I think I'm convinced that technology, we are not very far from that technology. And the cool thing about that is it can, if you say, I'm going to be in let's say you're in a small group mode where you have to be highly empathetic, but you also need to have your cognitive performance way up high, because you not only have to be empathetic to these people, but you need to be able to pull out of some kind of distant memory the necessary insights to be able to help them, or to partner with them, or to be loving to them. And being able to call up those neurochemicals at that rate, and to be able to go, all right, we're building the concert right now. We'll bring those strings up, and we're going to bring that bass up, and those things. To be able to do that is going to be a very powerful asset. The other thing that we're working on is I'm pointing right now to Mr. Robot's lab. So we hired a roboticist to put together automation technology for us so that we can do a better job of what we're already doing with humans, which is making each of these caps by hand and each of these drinks by hand and doing those things. And, they're measuring out the ratios, and they've got a tolerance that they've got to stay within, and they've got to, raise or lower certain neurochemical precursors to make the formulas work right for that individual. And what he's doing is building this really cool
capsule making machine that will tie into your medical intake form and your feedback form. It'll look at the millions of other data points that we've collected and say, oh, this person needs this, and exactly. And then it puts that together. And eventually, maybe on your bedside or maybe in your kitchen next to your coffee maker will be a 3D printer that will print out the solution that comes from your Aura watch or your Aura rings feedback. And when you wake up in the morning, your pot of coffee will be brewed, and right next to it will be a small group of 2 or 3 nootropics that says morning, afternoon, evening, and then maybe your oil capsule will also be in there as well. So that's the future. And I love that. I love that you do that. By the way, how have you found your results to be? Are you using as a ketogenic solution? Are you using it as an overall mood solution? Are you using it because your pancreas sucks?
Yeah, it's for performance. Mood, health in general. I do go into ketosis daily, but I also eat a ton of carbs. So it's seeing that flexibility is helpful, or just knowing, that I'm sensitive to oats and I had no idea. Yeah, it's been helpful for that. But I just came across a continuous ketone monitor too. So I just want a graph of everything.
Is it true, Max?
I mean, it's nice to have a number for someone to point to be like, see, I told you. I'm like, all right, we'll see. All right.
When I get Matt is a prove it guy, Matt Gallant, our CEO. And so whenever we do something, prove it is kind of the net, he's going to say the next thing, prove it. And so you not only have to come up with NCBI, examine.com, self-hacked data points, you've got to come up with, those research points, but you also have to come, it's like, okay, dig deeper. And then we have a lab, by the way. We have a I think it's 18 person now. It might be 20 person. It is 20 person. I think 16 of them are in the actual laboratory at Birch University in Bosnia. And they specifically work for us on doing 100% of the time they work for us. So they're a bunch of PhDs and PhD candidates, and all they do is research for us. So when I say, I think this works, they go and they prove it. And they're incredible. I love having really smart people behind us to be able to kind of do that kind of vetting of our ideas. It's powerful.
Solid.
Someday I'll send you some of this.
Ooh. It's all about the packaging too, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Oh, you ready? You ready? So the future, what we've been doing is as you may have seen. Have you guys received any of our product yet?
Not yet.
Well, I haven't been
All right.
home, no.
Our team, our podcast team is going to send you product. They'll send you a link that will say that so you can fill out the intake form and have the full experience. And then they'll make sure that you get that shipped to you. And hopefully we'll have this in stock as well, because this is incredible. I use it morning and afternoon. It's a collagen and mushroom concoction that we built. I was trying to build caps, actually. That was a happy accident. Mm-hmm. I was trying to build nootropic caps. Matt had been an addict for a number of years. And once he got clean, he tried to put his brain back together. And what he used for that was lion's mane was the starter point for him. He said, it really was profound. Doing like 3, 4, 5, 6 grams of lion's mane a day had made a big impact on him. And so I started creating these highly concentrated capsules of lion's mane. And Chastity was indexing. We would get hundreds of samples from all over the world from all these different grows. And because we wanted to, we would do lab testing for them to see if they had heavy metals or anything in them. And then also the concentration levels. We'd go from a 1-to-1 to 10-to-1 to 20-to-1 to 50-to-1 to 100-to-1. And I'm putting them in capsules. She's pouring them into these plastic containers and labeling them and putting the COA and all the information that helps to identify them, where they were from, what part of the universe they were from, and those things. And she goes, these smell really chocolatey. And she's a 5-star chef. So she started formulating all, chaga and red reishi and cordyceps and lion's mane, and eventually came up with this incredibly delicious chocolate drink out of them that's it's hyperdense mushrooms. It's a pound and a half of mushrooms for 18 grams of product, and it's incredibly effective for what's called BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor, which is the kind of the precursor to neurogenesis. It's fertilizing the brain and saying, hey, you can create new brain cells if you want. So here's what happened. So we've been shipping things in test tubes for years now, for a decade, and that came from this. So that
dust full of test tubes here.
Yeah.
That's a test tube baby. That's how I funded my first company. Is I built and sold test tube babies when I was in the Air Force in Central California, and I raised enough money to buy my first laser and start my first laser company with that. Kind of fun.
Laser babies.
Yep. And so as an homage to it, when I started building our products for our nootropic products, I put them in test tubes because it was it was another startup. And what we're going to be doing now is we just created these new mag packs. So what I wanted was something as ubiquitous as the Zippo lighter, and James Dean, click, right, with cigarettes rolled up in his T-shirt. And I wanted to have something that would be that kind of cool, fun, and make a cool sound,
but not kill you. That's cool.
Yeah,
all right,
really
one
fun.
more most important question: can you cure a hangover?
Absolutely. In fact, I made a hangover cure for Lil Jon. Now I can't. We can't say cure, right? I just got banished. But I can help you keep from getting a hangover. So here's the deal: Lil Jon was drinking a fifth of his favorite liquor when he was on stage, and he had just turned 40. I think it was. He was either 40 or 48. And he was going, bro. I can't keep doing this. My wife is hating it, and I'm, my head's showing it, and my body's starting to show it. What can you do? And so I started looking at the pathways, and there's a thing called acetaldehyde that is created in the liver when you basically overtax it with alcohol. And so I did a couple of things. One is improve the processing that happens in the liver, and the other is blocked alcohol's delivery into it. One of the party tricks that you could do with this hangover solution was we had three pieces. We had a before drink, a before capsule, and an after drink. So you get the after drink was to make sure that you got better quality sleep, because typically when you're wasted and you're sleeping, you're not getting into, as you probably know on your Oura Ring, if you've ever had imbibed a little too fluently.
Indeed.
So the deal was to help to take care of that. Well, I made it strong enough in the capsules. You could take one or two capsules. If you took two capsules in the drink, you wouldn't get drunk. So you could basically drink like a fish. And so all your friends thought you were wasted. All your friends would try to take advantage of you. All your friends would make you the party favor, but you were still clean as an arrow. It was great. Yeah.
Drunk.
Wow.
That's bizarre. That sounds not fun.
Prove it.
Yeah, prove it.
I love it.
Let's go right now.
Let me see what I've got, because I know I've got the formula still. Yeah, I love it. Are you a wine, a hard liquor, a martini, beer? What's your poison?
Yes. In one night. All of those.
Oh, that's too funny.
Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
I'm glad we had this opportunity. Thanks.
Yeah. Where can the fitheads find you and what you do?
Nootopia.com, and Mark Effinger is where you find me on other places. I do some answering on Quora, some rants on medium.com, and I'm now getting back into this old thing called Facebook. just because I know you've heard of it before.
Love that.
We will be doing IG. Actually, my team is doing IG for me. So, and there's I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. So I have to say that there's a bunch of stuff going out from, like, I did a podcast tour in Austin earlier this summer. And so you get people like Luke Story and others that I had an opportunity to spend some time with. And I have to tell you, man, you podcast folks are absolutely the finest people in the world. It's to have as much collective intelligence as I'm discovering, as much authentic love and joy from people has been a surprise and delight. I come from the geek world where love is something you only say behind closed doors, with some you're just about to copulate with, and
love.com is not taken yet.
Well, it's just amazing that there's so many really exceptional people out there that are willing to open up one is to create a platform for other people to expand their message, to add value to that conversation, to that dialogue, to that discourse, to the narrative, and to also make you think about, like, you guys have asked some really great questions today, and it's made me think about, am I communicating the right things? Am I sharing the stuff that needs to be shared? Am I rambling off into the distance?
A little of both.
But it is. I mean, I think, like, one of the most important things outside of this is to really let your listeners know that, regardless of whether you use our solutions or anything else, is you do have an opportunity to take total control of the way you feel about life, the way you experience life, and there are tools available to help you accelerate or improve your relationship to the things that are going on around you, including the people that you're dealing with. And so you don't have to be a victim to the way you felt this morning when you woke up because you had a shitty night's sleep, or the conversations you're going to have because you're going to have a confrontational conversation with an employee that's screwing up, or you are screwing up and you're afraid you're going to get throttled. There's actually tools available. Some are neurochemical, some are biochemical, some are more activities like we talked about, meditation or breath work that you can do. But you're not a victim. I mean, it's incredible the amount of tools that are available now for people to access and to apply. So, yeah.
You can take control. I love it.
Absolutely. I'm sure we have a coupon code for you guys, probably, right? Fitheads, is that right?
Sure. We'll get a coupon code from you for sure. We'll put it in the description. So Fitheads, look there on our YouTube video if you're looking to get into the nootropics.
Nootropics. Don't you love that word? Doesn't it doesn't it have, like, it's like a roller coaster on the lips?
Yeah.
Nootropic. It's always it's like you went into slow motion mode. Nootropic.
All right.
Hey, what
Thank
can
you again?
Yeah, what is a parting message from you? What's the most profound thing that you've been experiencing over this last few months that has been a life changer for you?
Well, let's stick to the conversation that we had. Sleep. Get good sleep. However you have to do it, with the right Limitless pill, or breathing, or letting a ring yell at you. Figure it out.
Yeah. What's your big trick? What's your big trick right now, Allie? For sleep.
Honestly, I've been trying to not eat as close to. It's not a trick because it sucks. Trick makes it sound like it would be easy and that'll just solve things, but you have to actively fast before sleep. It's difficult.
You doing it? Are you 2 hours, 3 hours? What do you try to do?
Well, like 2 minutes, but I'm working on a window that size.
Too funny. I love it. Max, what about you? What's the big thing that you've, like, kind of big aha that you've experienced recently that has kind of either infiltrated your life and become a part of your methodology, or that's been an aha moment for you?
I think just measuring things or being aware of things. You know, I thought I was getting pretty good sleep, for example, and then you get either a tracker or a timer or whatever, and it's like, actually, you know, you got into bed, but you didn't get off your phone for an extra hour, or, you know, I thought I was doing okay with this, and then, you know,
Yeah.
you start tracking it, and then you're like, wow, I did not where I thought I was. So writing it down, tracking stuff, I think that's important.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys, I really appreciate spending the time. And I'm going to make sure that you get a load of stuff sent out to you. Load's a positive word in this case, by the way. You get a load of stuff sent out to you.
Solid.
So you could try it. And then if you have any questions, don't hesitate to hit me up.
Sounds good. And thank you so much to the Fit Heads. If you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts, that helps us out a whole lot. And we'll see you next week.